In this unit, I want to show you how to legally use your dealer license plates and how to legally issue temporary tags. Here you see a dealer license plate. The state has very strict guidelines on how you can legally use your dealer license plates, and I want to cover those legal guidelines with you right now. A dealer license plate can only be placed on vehicles in your inventory, and they are registered to a specific vehicle. If you place a dealer plate on a different vehicle, then you need to re-register it to the new vehicle. It's a misdemeanor to operate a vehicle with an expired dealer plate, and I want to repeat that important information. It is a misdemeanor to operate a vehicle with an expired dealer plate. Just as importantly, I want to show you the illegal use of dealer license plates. You can never put a dealer license plate on a work or a service vehicle. For example, you could buy a big pickup truck and place a dealer license plate on it and bring it back to your dealership. However, once you start hauling a trailer with vehicles on it back and forth from the dealer auction, that is then referred to as a service vehicle. So if you want to haul cars and trucks back and forth from the dealer auction behind a specific truck, you'll need to pay your motor vehicle excise tax on that truck. You can never put a dealer plate on a parts or delivery vehicle or any vehicle that's being towed by another vehicle. You may never place a dealer plate on what's known as a courtesy vehicle. So let's say, for example, you own a repair shop and you're fixing customers' vehicles. You cannot loan them vehicles that have a dealer plate on it. You can never place a dealer plate on any vehicle that's being loaned to a customer. And you can also never place a dealer plate on any vehicle that's being used for commercial services. If you're providing a service and someone's paying you for that service, then you must pay your motor vehicle excise tax on that vehicle. So you can never place a dealer plate on what's known as a service vehicle. Here you see the Motor Vehicle Division's dealer license plate system, and you will gain a specific number of dealer plates depending on your annual sales. If you sell 5 to 49 vehicles, the maximum in a year, the maximum number of dealer plates you're allowed is 1. If you sell 50 to 99 vehicles in 1 year, you would be allowed a maximum of 3 dealer plates. If you sell 100 to 500 vehicles a year, then you would be allowed the maximum of 5 dealer plates. And as I said earlier, if you ever want to operate on a lower number of dealer plates than what you're allowed, you can save a little bit of money on your insurance. If you have over 500 sales in 1 year, you can get up to 10 dealer plates. If you are licensed for the first time on or after August 1st of the year, you can get a maximum of 5 dealer license plates your first year. Here you see what is known as a demonstration permit or a demo permit. There are things you can do with the demo permit, and there are things you are strictly prohibited from doing with a demo permit. So what can you do with a permit? Well, remember, you're using it on a demo. Okay, that's why they call it a demo permit. So you're going to use these for test driving or maybe preparing a vehicle for sale or lease for the specific vehicle that it's issued to. It is affixed to a specific vehicle, so these are not interchangeable. You don't take a demo permit and transfer it from one vehicle to another. They are specific to the vehicle, and they are actually valid for as long as that vehicle is in your dealership inventory. So as long as it hasn't been destroyed, you can keep that same demo permit on that vehicle in your inventory. Be aware that you must maintain a list of your demo permits and keep those for at least 3 years. So remember, you're going to keep records for this year, and then you're going to keep all those records in the future as well. So we'll cover records extensively later in your dealer training course. You always want to make sure that you have an accurate record of all the demo permits that you have issued, and you can create and print your demo permits right on VRS. So it's very easy to do once you've got registered for your vehicle registration suite. Now I want to show you your next permit. This is a temporary permit. A temporary permit or temp tag is shown here. So what are you going to do with a temporary permit? You will only place it on a vehicle that has been sold to a retail customer. And I want to repeat that very important information. You are only going to place a temporary permit on a vehicle that's been sold to a retail customer. You should never put a demo permit on a vehicle that's already been sold. You're only going to use a temporary permit on a vehicle that's been sold to a retail customer. You can never issue a temporary permit to someone who didn't buy a vehicle from you, such as a person who just walked in off the street and didn't make a purchase. Or for example, let's say your brother-in-law comes in and asks you to print a temporary permit so he can drive a vehicle for a couple months. You cannot issue one unless it's on a vehicle that you have sold. So they're going to be placed on vehicles that are sold to retail customers. Once again, temporary permits are affixed to the specific vehicle. They are valid for 30 days. Remember, the customer must pay their motor vehicle excise tax within 30 days. Also, temporary permits cannot be issued if there's a lien on that vehicle. So when you're using VRS, it's going to do a quick check to find out if there's a lien. So the lien or the loan would need to be paid off before you ever issued any type of temporary permit on a vehicle that you sold. Now let's talk about reprints. You are allowed to reprint a temporary permit on the day of purchase, but there are only really 3 scenarios when this is allowed. If you've made a data entry mistake, if the temporary permit was placed inside the vehicle and maybe the customer lost it, maybe blew it away or something like that, or if the permit was stolen. So the 3 scenarios would be if you made a data entry mistake, or if the customer lost a temporary permit on the day they were driving off the lot, or maybe that permit was stolen. You are allowed 3 reprints on the same day, but they must be for a legitimate reason, such as lost, stolen permit, or data entry error. After 3 reprint attempts, the system will lock you out, and you need to contact VRS Customer Assistance directly. So please do keep that in mind. Now let's move on to your out-of-state transportation permit. A temporary permit is for retail sales to customers who live in New Mexico. But let's say someone comes in out of state, like they came in from El Paso, Texas to buy a vehicle on your lot. In that case, you'll issue an out-of-state transportation permit, as you can see right here. So this permit is issued when you have someone that lives outside the state of New Mexico buying a vehicle from you. There are a few guidelines that you want to remember as well for out-of-state transportation permits. They can only be issued for vehicles sold to out-of-state customers, and each permit is tied to a specific vehicle. They are valid for 5 days from the purchase date, so make sure to remind your customer of this. For example, if your customer is from Denver, Colorado, then they're going to need to have their own permit from the state of Colorado once they've taken that back to Denver, okay? Similarly, if they're from Phoenix, Arizona, they're going to need to obtain an Arizona temporary permit once they return home. However, remember that out-of-state transportation permits are only valid for 5 days. So you definitely want to remind your out-of-state customers that they are only valid for 5 days. As with your temporary permits, out-of-state transportation permits cannot be issued if there's a lien on the vehicle. So VRS is going to perform what's called a National Insurance Crime Bureau check to ensure that there are no liens on that vehicle. And lastly, reprints for out-of-state transportation permits can only be done on the same day as the original issue. As with temporary permits, if they're needed, they must be for a valid reason, and they only allow 3 reprints, and then VRS would lock you out. And at that time, you would need to contact them for further assistance. So please do keep that in mind. I want to make you aware of a very important permit that many dealers may not even be aware of, and it's called the emergency permit. So during my travels across the state, I once taught classes all throughout the state in Albuquerque, Roswell, and Las Cruces. I once taught a class in Roswell where a gentleman came down from Clovis who had been in business for over 30 years, and he'd never even heard of this permit. This is an emergency permit. An emergency permit is a hard paper permit that you can order in advance, and you can use it if VRS is down. So you would only use this if VRS is down. It's really important to note that this permit can only be used if VRS is not functioning itself, like it's during system maintenance, which doesn't happen very often. This emergency permit is not intended for situations where maybe you don't have internet, or if your internet's spotty. That's not what this permit is for. This permit is to be used only if you have VRS down. And if you do use an emergency permit because VRS is back down, as soon as VRS is back up, then you're going to have to log back in and activate that permit. So an emergency permit is only valid for 72 hours. So it's important to be aware of that time limit. And, I'm always going to recommend that you keep a few of these permits in stock just in case you ever need them, just in case the rare scenario where VRS may be down. Now, you can order your emergency permits right through VRS. And remember, they're only used if VRS is unavailable. They're not used in situations where maybe you don't have reliable internet. I also want you to be aware, it is a really smart practice to always ask for proof of insurance and a photograph ID before you ever allow a customer to take a test drive of one of your vehicles. This ensures they are legally covered and protects your dealership in case of any accidents or other issues. If a customer cannot provide proof of insurance, I would recommend that you don't even allow them to drive your demos. And additionally, by having a photograph ID, you have proof of that customer's identification, and that can be used as a form of protection for your dealership in case that customer does not bring back that demo. And for example, in a recent incident, a Yamaha dealership told me they were able to recover a stolen motorcycle because they had a copy of the customer's ID. So this information helped law enforcement track down that thief. So by requiring proof of insurance and a photograph ID, you're not only protecting your dealership, but you're also ensuring that the customers drive responsibly and legally. If a customer has valid insurance, then you could forward that information to your insurance agent for possible recourse should anything happen during the test drive. So it's really important to establish this as your dealership policy for the safety and security of both your inventory, your customers, and you. To review these videos, you can go to NewMexicoDealer.com and you can click on dealer videos right there and scroll right down. You know, this is a great resource for both new and experienced dealers to, be informed about best practices, regulations, and other useful information. You can even encourage your salespersons and sales managers to watch these videos as well. If they find themselves with a little bit of downtime, it's a productive way for them to learn more about dealership operations and compliance. And this will not only keep them engaged, but will also improve their knowledge of the industry and your dealership's sales processes. So you can review all those videos at any time at NewMexicoDealer.com.